Welcome to Trauma Research Foundation's TRF Tuesday, everyone. This is our weekly mini workshop series from Bright Voices in Therapeutic Embodiment. If you're watching on YouTube, as always, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to let YouTube know that this content is valuable and to show it to more people. Gang, we're so happy to have you. Take it away.
Thank you, Mary. It's my sixth day. It's our sixth day. TRF Tuesdays assigned to me. And I always log in at 4 a.m. here. If you can see the window, it's still 4 in the morning in Manila. And one of the things that I realized is like there were 100 million things I wanted to share. And I was confused, apparently, between the very academic approach, and I wanted you all to learn something, and at the same time to make it feel as warm as possible. I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. Then I realized, we only have half an hour. So I wanted us to just like be at pace with each other. The whole course, Pop Goes the World, is quite experimental. We really just wanted everybody to have things that you scroll, since I can't stop you from scrolling. Things that you scroll, what are the mental health learnings you pick up from there? So I want to begin with this because this, wait, are you all seated? I need you on the chat box, please. Tell me if you're seated or you're on a laptop or you're on a phone. Where are you? Like, are you like steady enough to take on a trigger? I'm just saying that. Laptop, yes. Rosario, thank you. Are you the one in Argentina? Ah, yes. You sit down. Okay, good. I will show you a clip from YouTube. It's quite famous. And seated in Atlanta. I like that one. I'm seated in Manila. I'm going to show you a video that may or may not trigger you. So if you have like phobia or agitation towards difficulties on the road, like with cars, I need us to all watch this together and get all the feelings out. And let's just talk to each other. You can chat with me while we're looking at the video. Okay. So first, let's see this. A lot of times in our lives, we are in situations that feel exactly like this. You're stuck, your in-laws are visiting, there's no hot water, etc. And they sound like minor things, but when logistics is a problem, sometimes that's also big, not even including the darker things that come in and the shadows that visit from nowhere. So sometimes, please type an exclamation point in the chat box if sometimes your week looks like this, or your day looks like this, or your afternoon is starting to look like this, and you're not quite sure how. Okay, so I'm going to start to play the video. You can actually Google this video. It's quite famous, but stay with me on the video. Okay.
A blue car could be seen gradually making a
video. I'm going to take off everything so that you don't hear anything. Let's just do it visually. How are you feeling? Like, what are you feeling for this driver? While you're watching, sick, Laura. While we're watching, sit back and just watch the video and do the inhale 4 counts. Hold it for 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 8. Or box breathing. Whatever you do, whatever the count is for you, just keep watching. I think many of you are holding your breath now, but if you just try to get your mood shift different while watching the car. Eliana, I feel you. Whew. Are you feeling a little more optimistic now? Are you cheering the driver on? Can you picture the driver safely away, or are you picturing the car at the bottom of the cliff? Also very impressed. Yes, Laura, thank you for that. Oh my gosh, so good. Let me do that again. I like that you called out the impressed part because, hold on a second, get away from the car. That's so true. Now, I'm going to keep quiet now for about 20 seconds. I just give you the 10 to 15 seconds watching this car and regulating your breath. You already know the car's going to make it. You already saw this. And yet you're still feeling the agitation. Why? Why? That's because you are hardwired to detect threat. You immediately know, and you are predicting, your brain's predicting, it may fall, it may not make it, it may or may not. So your brain is so efficient, so efficient. Can you feel your brain? Even if you already know that the car's going to make it, you can't help but feel in your central nervous system some reaction. But now, this is an exercise. This is like a workout in the gym. Feel your brain, calm yourself down by way of breathing. Like hold your chest. We do this by instinct. We do this by instinct. We hold our cheeks, we hold our chests, and etc. Right? I just wanted to share that with you. Was that a good exercise? Hey, I have a. Do you want to try that again? Okay, we'll do that one more round, just for the learning. Okay, this is like, it's like we're going to the brain gym, and we're gonna do it in reps. You know how that goes when you have like dumbbells or barbells, and you have to lift X number of pounds 8 times. That's repetition. So let's do it again. Okay, this time, you know that it's going to make it, and try to control the change in your chest through your long exhale. Eventually, you'll be like, yep, I've seen this. Yep, you can do it. And eventually maybe you are steadier. Maybe you will be calmer. Every now and then, the frisson of your central nervous system will still go, "Gah, gah," but you've seen this before. And with your long, exaggerated exhale, you can actually feel your calm body return, even while watching something extremely stressful. And then you get impressed by how this car, the driver is handling it. And then you made it. You know what happens? We kind of forget that we made it through something like this in our lives before. But we remember the fear. Exhale. Last. Exhale, and he'll make it through. Yay! Must be trick filming, but it isn't. It isn't. It's true. Really happens. So that was our exercise to start the evening, because I know that the summary of our 6 classes is like, can we actually survive? Can we actually be regulating during our daily lives? And how do I say this? I prepared a super speedy input for the day. And please type on the chat box if there's anything you want to contribute or ask or etc. But I'll go through this really fast because, like I said, there's so many things I really want to share. But I think this would be like a summary of how we usually can handle stuff. Our exercise showed it at first. It was breathing. It will save you. I know it sometimes feel like, what? It feels like, what? I don't know. It's just breath. I don't know. Let me tell you what gets us through and what makes us feel worse. It's really our automatic negative thoughts. Automatic negative thoughts we are so efficient. The minute you see something, you can immediately detect what can go wrong. And then the difference will be if you stay there in that thought or not. Otherwise, let me just go ahead and speed through this. You know so well that thoughts are really powerful. All right. The minute you think, oh, it's not so bad, or the minute you try to apply something like a word to a situation. Is it okay to say bad words here? Anyway, the minute you see a project or an email and you say, oh, you immediately labeled the feeling, and that powerful thought will really either take you to the excitement to take on the project or to despair. That's really where it happens. And it has been said, and this is just a summary, you know this already, the best use for your imagination is really when you create something, and the worst use is when you're anxious. Both require imagining, both require thinking and picturing something that hasn't happened yet, and we can really go far with it, in creating or being anxious. This is my dog. His name is Justice. He's a French bulldog, and he's the world's most beautiful dog. And it's all right if yours is the second most beautiful dog. That's fine. No. So we have a stuffed toy that looks exactly like him. And sometimes I see him really worried, looking at the dog, saying probably to himself. Of course, I'm personifying him. He says, okay, this dog really looks like me, but this stuffed toy, they don't need to feed him. They don't need to walk him or make him poor pee. What if I'm replaced, right? So that's how we are. Instead of saying, hey, my parents really like me, they bought a stuffed toy for me that looks like me. You can see Justice is super, super worried. Justice is my dog. That's his name. But I need you to know why I'm presenting Justice, because he's like the foremost beloved thing of my days. And I know that my creative anxiety is ruining minutes I have with him. Do you know? And please type an exclamation point if you can relate with me. Every time I'm hugging him, I'm thinking, I'm gonna be so sad when you die. I know that isn't that so realistic? Do you do that too? Every time I'm with Justice and I'm feeling his fat body, I'm like, wow. Sorry, is it okay to say that? How am I gonna live if I lose you when you die and you will die ahead of me? I'm always there. And you know what? It robs me. It robs me of his beautiful minutes and of this joy. Can I help it? No, I can't help it. It really comes, especially I've been so traumatized by death. All of us, in some way or another, have been. And I feel really bad that I'm not in the moment. Can you see my metaphor now? Is it becoming clearer? Justice is a darling. He has the best disposition. He rarely barks, only when he's like startled. He is kind of chubby. So he's like a big portable big dog, because a French bulldog is like stocky, but they're short enough. But honestly, every time I hug him, I am already picturing the day he'll die. How awful is that? But it's a mechanism of my anxiety that is efficient, because I've experienced death before and I know what's up, and I know that it's only there to protect me, and and I can't help it. So, but I need to put it in check. He is perfect, Stephanie. Justice is perfect. I need to put it in check in order to enjoy the embrace of my dog. And this is probably the same with your loved ones, your children, if you have them, etc., partners, etc. So, with our brains, we can really think of. I can make you recall a happy event or a terrible event, and even years later, there's you still mount a reaction to it, but you will have a more physical reaction remembering a sad or difficult event more than a happy event. And you know this because in our brains, and you can Google this another time, when pain registers in our anterior cingulate cortex, when it registers there, it's so close to the part of our brains that really store memory, the amygdala. They're right beside each other, because in order to protect us in a predictive way, we have to remember what hurt us so that we can avoid it. So anxiety is not our enemy. It's actually our protective mechanism. We just need to be more in touch. So let me go back to Justice the cutie pie. So when I don't relish this, and when I'm hugging this beautiful creature, and I'm already thinking of the day he will die, I do deprive myself of a few seconds. I should allow it to pass, because I can't kill that thought just yet. But I should handle it the way I handle automatic negative thoughts. I should be more in control of it and not let it drown me. So I'll proceed. We do have an average of 60,000 thoughts a day. This is not a random number. It is a rounded off number registered with a functioning MRI study. And it is 60,000 neurotransmissions throughout the day. And if you think about it, majority of your thoughts you have thought of before. They're repetitive. They were the same fears you had when you were a child. And it's the same repetitive fear and anxiety you had when you were heartbroken, when you were rejected, and you were abandoned, on repeat. Only a small percentage of our 60,000 thoughts is new and creative. That's all right. It's okay, because the repetitive thoughts has its purpose. It keeps us safe. Remember? You remember that fire is hot. You remember that a cactus is sharp. You remember that when you date certain types of guys, you get hurt. No, I'm kidding. But you know what I mean, right? So we have very, very few new thoughts. Now, I just want you to know this, and you can go with it throughout the rest of the month, thinking, is this a new thought? Can I think a new thought? Is this a repeat thought? Mind yourself, because these pieces of information, they've been really studied through the years with a functioning MRI observation. So this is not a I mean, this is not a this is just not a random idea. This is really how our brains work. I think it I feel a little sad when I realize that's right. I have very few new thoughts. Maybe you want to add 3% more new thoughts throughout the day. I thought that's something. So what can I do with my fear of losing my dog? I need to have, I say this lightly, but it really is a big pain in my life. And like very many of you, I mask it. Like very many with my low grade Asperger's, I really mask things and always stay cheerful, polite, because that's how I'm accepted and that's how I'm approved of. But deep inside, I'm really petrified for the most part. I really have a strange relationship with death and my dog, and I love my dog. So we have to check the repetition. Where do we start? We check here. You have to contest what you think. Yes. The lifespan of a French bulldog is short. It's true, but I show evidence that we have been keeping him at a low sodium diet. We make him walk. We do everything in our power to keep him healthy. We keep his temperature in check. There's always water. And if it's unreal, if you check if your anxious thought is unreal, you have to label it that it's unreal and say, okay, I'm repeating this thought. Can you do away with it? I don't know. I don't know if it dissipates. I just know that it helps when you're aware of it rather than you're not aware and then it suddenly drowns you. Does this make sense? Okay. So you constantly have to check it. I'm so excited to share all the info because I synthesized all of neuroscience in my head into practical thoughts on how we can manage the dailies. You do know that when you think chronic negative thoughts, it really adds to your health. You know this by now. This is exactly why you're in the Trauma Research Foundation solar system. So what we need to do is really almost picture, if you can, because creative use of our imagination is something we should apply now. If you can picture for every anxious chronic thought, for every 10 times you think it, your brain somehow shrinks. And every new thought, brain-derived neurotropic factor, there is a protein that's produced that replenishes your cells. If you could just picture it that way, since we can gamify, like just picture it like Tetris in your mind. Do something that replenishes your brain, just so that you can picture it in your head. If you were born, or if you were my age and you're in the middle of the analog and the digital world, you still know the thing called defragging, when you defrag a computer to make it make the process faster. I'm sure you probably know that. These days, most of our computers reboot and defragment themselves on their own. So please remember that anxiety, and when we're worried, it's really a protective mechanism. It exists to keep us safe. It can take several forms, I get it, but please, it's not the enemy. It's not the enemy. It becomes the enemy when it is in charge. Is it most of the time in charge for me? Actually, yes, and I need a lot of help. I have mechanisms that are maladaptive, that are not as healthy as I want it to be. I occasionally reach out for a cigarette, which really you shouldn't because it's not healthy. But sometimes I think, I think a cigarette reminds me of breathing in and out, in and out. Maybe one day I'll get to do it. The calming down minus reaching out for maladaptive behaviors. There's no judging here. We all just try to manage ourselves every day. So please know that our thoughts actually physically impact our brain. It increases many of what we're prone to, depression, chronic anxiety, etc. It changes the composition of your brain because every neurotransmission secretes a chemical, and then things change in your brain. So even if you can't picture it, maybe we can gamify it in our heads the way we do with media. Every time you think a chronic thought more than 10 times, something happens. And when you think of a replenishing thought, taking a walk, appreciating a flower, sending a thank you note to someone, it comes in many forms: a bath, a glass of wine, etc. Just inhaling, exhaling. I really go back to the breath a lot because you always carry your breath with you. So even if you forget your teddy bear when you travel, you still have your breath. And so sometimes I want to do that because most of the time, We really are babies. Our fear center in our brains when we were young, they were already formed prior to that. And our primal drive is survival. And we're very aware of hunger, and we're very aware of fatigue, and we're very honest. When we're hungry, we cry. When we're tired, we're crappy and we just pass out, when we're babies. But something happens when we become adults. We fight it, and things become more important than our hunger and fatigue. Like all of a sudden becoming skinnier is more important. Achieving is more important than 7 hours of sleep, or 8, if that's your thing. So try to go back to your baby center, wherein I'm hungry, I'll eat. I'm sleepy, I'll sleep. I know there are times when you have to grit through and power through those things, but I think you know what I'm talking about. We should regulate it. This. We're forming our brains. The frontal lobe formation takes 20 to 25 years. And I always hear this, I will never diagnose someone below 18 because the diagnosis is he's a teenager or she's a teenager. But we grow up, and then we form so many of our habits. And we know by now our body, it really responds to a threat. We are so efficient. It has kept us safe. It will keep us not sad, or whatever the things you're avoiding, fear or depression or sadness. But the thing is, our bodies respond whether it's real or not. The truth is really in our brain. The poetic truth is really in our brain, and sometimes the poetic truth is in our central nervous system. I'm rambling, but it's a really important ramble. When you see something like this, it doesn't look like this anymore. Stress doesn't look like this anymore. Now, threat looks like an email, an SMS, a phone call, and what happens in our bodies. Everything shuts down, digestion slows down, but blood pressure goes up so that we can run away. But when you receive an email now or a phone call, we don't run away, literally. So where does all that go? Where do all the chemicals go? Where? It kind of bothers the constitution of our brains, physical brains. So when you're running away from a lion, you're really not sleepy. You don't digest. Everything stops. You're focused on getting away from the lion these days. What are the lions in your life? What does it look like in the cliff of your car being backing up and trying to U-turn in a cliff? What does it look like? I really want you to keep that visual in your head whenever you're thinking about it, and picture how the driver got out of it. The lions that we need to outrun now, it's in our thoughts, it's in our phones. And you need to know that trauma, we know this, but I need to remind us, it knows no time. When trauma and threats show up, you don't know that this was 17 years ago. You are feeling the central nervous system feeling right now. And what do you have? Many things. You can hold on to many things for sure. If you have a soothing blanket, etc. When we were young, if you have a stuffed toy. But these days, as adults, you can still have those. But I want you to hold on to your exhale, the long exhale. I think it will, because your body has to be part of every response, because your body responds, not just your feelings or your brain, to a threat, whether it's real or perceived, whether it's in your phone or or a person showing up. So automatic persistent thoughts show up. I need you to know that they're like ants. I'm so glad the abbreviation of automatic negative thoughts is ants, because it's really a lot like ants. If you see one ant, you have no problem. But when you see a swarm of ants in your kitchen, then we have a problem. And this is an exercise, for example. Look at the third bullet point. When you read about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and you saw pictures or etc., or maybe the Israel-Palestine, whichever that you encountered while scrolling, you can immediately judge yourself and say, if I don't feel awful for Ukraine or Palestine, I think I'm an awful human being. And so you feel compassion and pity, and you're feeling all sorts of helpless feelings, because, how will you help Ukraine and how will you help Palestine when you're in Argentina and I'm in Manila? You need to have a filtered view and say, whatever your mechanism is, if you're religious, then you say a quick prayer, if etc. But please know, please know that you have a chance to deal with the input one by one. You don't need to swarm and feel it. And besides, if you no longer feel great high level compassion for Ukraine today doesn't make you an awful person. It's all right. You can set it aside. You can feel it again tomorrow. If you find an avenue or a way to help them by reposting support or sending money, I don't know what it is that will comfort you. Find that. But if there's none, calm down and say, okay, this is not mine. Do you know? You can forget everything I said tonight, but I need to hold on. I need to tell you what my mom said to me, and it's the best advice I think I ever got in my life. And that's saying a lot. My mom said, some things are not yours. Some things are not yours, good or bad. The war in Ukraine, perhaps not yours. You know, a lovely relationship with your father, maybe not yours. This bad thing that's happening, maybe not yours either. So you have to filter and know which one is yours, one by one, thought by thought. One brain thought releases a chemical. So like own stuff. I think that's what they mean. That's exactly what they mean when they say own it. Own the thought. So that's it. That's a summary. I tried to like cram everything into it. Do we have questions? Oh, hi, Pat and Mary.
Hello. Yeah, we're about out of time, but we'll make time for one. I do have a question because my microphone got messed up last week and I didn't get to ask it. Okay. So I will. And then if anybody wants to drop anything in the chat, feel free and we'll try and get to at least one. So my question last week was, in the world that we live in, often we are encountering sounds and images that are juxtaposed next to each other, like the exercises that we did in the previous weeks. What would be your advice or a way to, use that practice, provided you run into something that is having a really negative effect on you and vice versa, something that's having a really positive effect? What would you say either way?
Actually, I always go back to cognitive distortions. If you could type that out and if you could Google it tonight, I always go back to cognitive distortions, because in a situation, one or two will always show up. Like, for example, your mother-in-law calls and says something really neutral in passing, like, hey, I got you workout clothes, let's just say. Immediately, my cognitive distortion, because I'm such a cognitive distortion Olympian, I really am. Immediately, I think, she thinks I'm fat. She wants me to exercise. She thinks I'm too ugly for her son. Oh my God, my brain really goes so far when my mother-in-law just saw sneakers that were my size. Can you see that? So if you can, Google cognitive distortions tonight. There's black and white thinking, negative filtering, the catastrophizing, etc. Chances are you will match one thing towards that situation. One cognitive distortion skill. I think it's a skill. I think it's also a skill to identify it. So if all else fails, look for that. And the other thing is really just my best. And you know what? When I went to my therapist the first time, I was frozen from a lot of trauma and a lot of stress. And no matter, even if he was the best therapist, I couldn't move. Like, I was frozen. What did I learn from that? What I learned is, even if I go to the world's best therapist, if I'm frozen, no one can do anything. None. You can go to Bessel, you can go to the best people, and nothing will happen. That's why I keep repeating. You have to go back to your brain and your breathing and figure out. Sometimes it helps me just to know what year it is. It's 2022 and I'm 51. Sometimes it's really helpful to just say that, because most of the time, what did I say earlier in one slide that I just passed through really quickly? Sorry about that. Trauma knows no time. You become 7 years old again in certain situations. You're 16 again when you're dealing with your weight and how you look. You're 11 again when somebody picks on your shoes or your lunch. You're 11. And sometimes an 11-year-old can't handle a boss at work. An 8-year-old can't handle an irate spouse. A 16-year-old can't handle a mother-in-law. So you have to remind yourself where you are now, what you've gotten through. Remember that car in the cliff? You have done that several times in your life. You have done that. You have to go back and say, okay, I'm a 51-year-old woman and I own the most beautiful dog in the world. And I'm married to a great guy who's super chill. And I have accomplished elementary school. I won a spelling contest when I was 11. Just remind yourself what you've gone through. And usually it really helps. And everybody says this. And I don't know what kind of layer of learning you'll get from this, but a lot of us, we are therapists of ourselves for sure. But the biggest job of a therapist sometimes is just to take you to the present minute. Like right now, Mary, it's September 21. And so funny because we're across international date lines. It's 4:34 in the morning for me of September 21 and it's September 20 there. But I think you just have to remember it's 2022. And did you forget who you are? We learned this from Lion King, right? Mufasa said, Simba, did you forget who you are? Did you forget just 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 years ago, you got past this. You got past things you couldn't even imagine you'd get past. So do that exhale, remember who you are, and like tiny, tiny movements. Tiny, tiny movements. Yay. This makes sense.
Thank you, Gang.
Okay.
Yes, that was great. I think that's it for questions. Mary, I don't know if you want to say anything there.
Well, Gang, we here at Trauma Research Foundation, thank you so much for presenting this series with us. It's been really enlightening to witness how our minds work in this fun and unique way. We've really enjoyed this series and we loved having you. Thank you so much. And thanks to our audience for joining. We do this for you and we hope you enjoy TRF Tuesday. Share it with everyone you know and visit our somatic library to watch past series. They're free to all. Be well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Long exhale. Make it save you.